In Elden Ring, there are plenty of ways to miss various questlines, NPC interactions, and items, and the same can be said for the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. In this guided walkthrough series, we'll be hitting upon all the NPC interactions and quests, and doing our best not to miss anything important, such as the Shadow Realm blessings. We won't be exploring every minor location, but we will be doing just about everything that is encompassed in a satisfying playthrough of Elden Ring's DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. You can check the video description for a more detailed list on what this guide series entails. I'll do my best to leave out spoilers or warn of them beforehand, but some spoilers in the form of important information will be necessary, and, as usual, useful timestamps can be found in the video description. Also, I suggest checking the pinned comment before watching, as I will leave new or updated information there as time goes on. First, before starting the DLC, I recommend clearing the entire base game, and you can use my original complete guide series to help with that. As far as I can tell, none of the NPCs questlines or choices made in the base game are related to the DLC or vice versa. All that truly matters is that you've defeated both Radahn and Mohg, Lord of Blood. Doing so is required to access the DLC, and it's covered in the previously mentioned series, as well as in my more recent guide video on how to prepare for the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. I will give a quick overview of the character I'm using for the series, which will start the DLC at level 225 and revolves primarily around faith, but also strength and dexterity. I recommend a minimum starting level of 150 for this DLC, but that is just a suggestion. Once we are ready, we can make our way to the Cocoon of the Empyrean within Mohgwyn Dynasty Mausoleum. There, we will meet the first NPC of the DLC, Needle Knight Letta. We can speak with her to get a quick introduction and instruction on how to enter the Shadow Realm. All we need to do is touch the withered arm of Miquella. Our first objective upon our arrival to the Shadow Realm will be to build up some power. I will explain more as we make our way northeast to get the Gravesite Plain map and our first hefty cracked pot. Enemies in the Shadow Realm are tough and deal a lot of damage. A way to offset this difficulty spike is by upgrading our Shadow Realm blessings. These come in two variants. The first are Scadutree Fragments, which increase our character's defensive and offensive capabilities. And the second are Revered Spirit Ashes, which do the same for our Spirit Ashes or Summons. These upgrade items are scattered throughout the Land of Shadow and can be redeemed at any site of grace within the DLC. Their benefits are substantial, but are also only active while in the Shadow Realm. We are going to cover a route through the Gravesite Plains to collect all Scadutree Fragments and Revered Spirit Ashes. However, I first want to get the armor set that I will be using for the majority of this DLC, which is obtained to the west at the Western Nameless Mausoleum. The boss, Black Jail Knight, can be fairly tough without any Shadow Realm blessings, so feel free to hold off on this fight as long as you want. This boss can be fought at any time. I'm just doing it now because I want the armor for the walkthrough. When defeated, the Black Jail Knight drops the Greatsword of Solitude along with the Armor of Solitude set, which is the nicest looking set of heavy armor, at least in my opinion. It also goes great with the Skeletal Hood, which is from the base game. With that covered, let's return to the Gravesite Plain Site of Grace and round up some Shadow Realm blessings. Our first destination is the Church of Consolation, down the road to the east. We can defeat the knight enemy there to get a black steel greathammer, and we will find two Scadutree Fragments sitting near the statue behind him. If we want, we can go into the cave to the northwest to grab a Blessing of Marika, which is a legendary one-time use consumable that restores all HP and heals all ailments. For our next destination, we will need to move southwest to get around the fissure, then go northeast. we should see a headless statue sitting near the cliffside. A single revered spirit ash will be found at this statue, as well as at multiple other identical statues scattered throughout the Shadow Realm. Next up, we will head north along the rock wall until arriving at a small cluster of solid tombstones. Here, we will find a dark shade holding a large glimmering pot over his head. Identical enemies can be found throughout the Shadow Realm, and they usually drop either a Scadutree blessing or a revered spirit ash when defeated for the first time. In this case, it's a Scadutree fragment. Let's go discover the Scorched Ruins Site of Grace to our southwest, then move northwest to our first cross of Missable. Watch out for the Furnace Golem, which can deal devastating amounts of damage. There are several of these found throughout the Shadow Realm, and we will cover how to defeat them once we have better access to Hefty Furnace Pots, which are their secret weakness. That won't be until part 2 of this series. For now, we will do our best to avoid it, and we should rest at the 3-path cross Site of Grace as soon as we can, so that the golem doesn't attack us while we are near NPCs. Also, this should go without saying, but it's best to avoid attacking any non-hostile NPCs, as pretty much all of them have their own quest lines. We will return to this Site of Grace soon, but first, let's go round up a couple final items. We'll pick up the Scadutree fragment near Miquella's Cross if we haven't already, then move northwest. Our next destination is the run-down Traveler's Rest beneath the Ellac Great Bridge. There, we will find several furnace visages as well as the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 2, which teaches us how to craft hefty furnace pots. Although it's good that we have the recipe now, we won't be able to get one of the required ingredients to craft these pots until reaching Scadu Altus. Next up, we will head north to the abandoned Ailing Village. We will find another headless statue and revered spirit ash tucked away in an alcove near the northeast edge of the village. Just above it is the Ailing Talisman, which we might as well grab while here. We should also discover the Site of Grace near the base of the village if we haven't already, and then fast travel back to the 3-path cross Site of Grace. At this point, we should have our Scadutree blessing and revered spirit ash blessing both at level 2. If we haven't already done so, we can interact with Miquella's Cross, then speak with the nearby NPCs. First is Redmane Freyja, and we can speak with her until her dialogue is exhausted, or in other words, until she starts repeating herself. We can then move a couple steps over to speak with the next NPC, known as Hornsent. He will give us the cross map, and we can speak with him until exhausting his dialogue. After that, Freyja will have one more new thing to say if we speak to her. Next up, let's ride down the western path, which will take us to the main gate cross Site of Grace, where 2 more NPCs are found. Once again, we can collect the Scadutree fragment and interact with Miquella's Cross, then speak with the 2 nearby NPCs. The first is Sir Ansbach, and we will want to exhaust his dialogue. The second NPC is Moore. He will sell us certain items, and purchasing an item from him will make the Talk to Moore option available. We can then speak to Ansbach once more and ask about the person in verdigris armor to learn a bit more about Sir Moore. You may have noticed Belurat Tower Settlement to the northwest. We will be going through this legacy dungeon soon enough, but for now, let's collect a few more Shadow Realm blessings and meet more NPCs. From the main gate cross, we will move southeast, up along the cliffside, eventually reaching the Cliff Road terminus site of Grace. We will next head down the road southwest to find another glimmering potbearer near a group of tombstones. It will drop a Scadutree fragment when defeated. We can then move east to find a revered spirit ash beyond Prospect Town. From here, we will move a short distance south to find a friendly kindred of Rot, also known as a pest. We can interact with it to get the Forager Cookbook too, and for reasons I won't get into because of spoilers, these Forager brewed cookbooks will become unavailable at some point in the DLC. Don't worry though, as we will be getting all of them in this series. While we are here, we might as well head south along this ridge to get an armor set and talisman. Keep in mind that this is totally optional, and you can get these items at any time. Along the way, we can grab the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 5. Going south along this path will get us to the Church of Benediction, where we can get the Blessed Blue Dew Talisman. In addition, we can head out the northern opening to find the Oathseeker Knight armor set and the Pata Gauntlet swords. Next up, let's travel back to the three-path cross and move northeast across the Ellac Great Bridge. We will find a Scadutree fragment near a statue on the other side, and the castle front site of Grace just beyond that. From there, we'll move down the road leading southeast. There should be a less prominent path splitting off a little more east from the main road, which we can follow to reach the Pillar Path cross. With the nearby Scadutree fragment, we should be able to bring our Scadutree blessing up to 4 and Revered Spirit Ash blessing up to 3. There is also an NPC here by the name of Thiollier. He will open his shop of poisons to us after some introductory dialogue. If we then go interact with Moore near the main gate cross and choose Talk to Moore, he will give us the black syrup key item. We can then return to Thiollier, give black syrup, then ask about black syrup, and finally say, I am weary of life. After doing all of that, we should get Thiollier's Concoction. This consumable is important for another NPC quest, which will be covered in the next part of this series. If you accidentally use it on yourself, you can always buy more from Thiollier for 30,000 runes each. Next up, let's fast travel to the Great Bridge North Site of Grace and move west across the pond and into the Belurat jail. This technically is not a missable part of the DLC, but there are 3 hefty cracked pots, which will be useful to have later on. We can start by going west down the main path. We will go ahead and collect all unique items in the dungeon, that way we don't have to return later on. After a staircase crumbles beneath our feet, we will move north across a narrow bridge. In the next chamber, there will be an opening to the east that we can jump through. We will then continue down the only path forward until reaching a large chamber with a pit in the center, and make sure to watch ahead as there is an easily missed hefty cracked pot to get here. We will need to carefully platform down the hanging jars until we reach one with a body slumped over the side. We will then want to drop down to the western jar below, which we can jump off to reach an elevated wooden platform where a chest containing a hefty cracked pot is located. Dropping to the bottom of the pit, we'll proceed west and across a bridge. Another set of stairs will crumble beneath our feet, dropping us into a maze of jars. We will start by moving down the western path, eventually turning southeast. The main exit is ahead, but we will first be turning southwest to go over some jars before heading further west. After grabbing the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 11, we will veer down the southern path, which will lead to a way on top of the jars. We can then hold the dodge input to sprint and jump to a nearby cluster of jars for a second hefty cracked pot. We will then drop down and move west once more, going north over some broken jars, and down a path that hugs the cave wall. This will lead to a way on top of a new cluster of jars where the third hefty cracked pot is found. We can drop down and grab the nearby Forgotten Ash of War, then make our way south-southeast to exit this maze-like area. After jumping a gap, we can drop off the ledge to our west onto a hanging jar. The jar should rise in response, taking us up to several more hanging jars, which we can platform across to reach a secluded area with an altar. On top of the altar is the Greatjar head armor. We can then make our way south and down 2 more hanging pots to get back on the main track. It is then just a short distance southeast and down a couple more jars to reach the boss chamber. There, we will need to fight Demi-Human Swordmaster Ons, and he will drop the Demi-Human Swordsman Yosh Spirit Ashes when defeated. Next, we're going to fast travel to the castle front site of Grace and move southeast, through the valley, to reach the Ruined Forge lava intake. There are 3 ruined forges in the DLC, and none of them are technically missable. However, while this first one doesn't have the best of rewards, the other 2 each have a unique legendary at the end, so let's go ahead and cover them as part of this series. We will head down the main path moving south into a room with some lava oozes and golem smiths. Dropping down to the west, we can then turn around to find the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 13. We will then climb the rubble to the southwest, jumping the gap to an elevated area. Going northwest and down the ladder will take us to a lever which we should interact with. After the intake pipe lowers into the lava, we can drop down to the area below, pick up the Smith Script dagger, then sprint jump to the intake pipe. All that's left is to climb up the pipe and jump off at the end, to the southeast. This will take us to a secluded chamber with a forge altar. Interacting with it will get us the anvil hammer and an ancient dragon smithing stone. And that's all there is to this forge. There is no final boss. Next, let's take a path down to the southern shore to get that region's map, and along the way we will get some Shadow Realm blessings and other useful items. Starting from the Ruined Forge lava intake, we will move northeast, down to a region with pools of poison and Miranda flowers. We can then angle west to reach the entrance of the Ellac River Cave. We will then move southwest through the cave and grab a Revered Spirit Ash just before discovering the Ellac River Cave site of grace. There is a really good talisman that we can get before continuing south. We will move west to exit the cave and then head north up the river. Near the end of the river is a small cave hidden behind a waterfall, where we can find the 2-headed turtle talisman. Before fast traveling back to our last site of grace, let's move a short distance west to a cliff edge. A pot can be found hanging from a stony protrusion, and we can shoot it down to get the Mushroom Seller's Bell-bearing 1. Fast traveling back to the Ellac River Cave site of grace, we will continue moving south. There are a few platforming sections that will need to be dealt with carefully to avoid death by fall damage. Along the way, we can pick up the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 12. Also a threat here are the handful of gravebirds lining the way down. Dangers notwithstanding, we should eventually get to the Ellac River downstream site of grace. As we hop our way down south by the waterfall, there will be another pot hanging from a stone pillar. We can shoot it, then move down to the base of the waterfall to pick up the Mushroom Seller's Bell-bearing 2. Next up, we will exit the cave and move east through the woods. Near the edge of this area is another friendly pest, which we can interact with to get the Forager Brood Cookbook 3. Once again, this is a missable item. With that, we will move southwest across the woods and past the Furnace Golem to reach the Cerulean Coast site of grace. We can then move south towards the southern shore map, and watch out for the ghost flame dragon that flies in along the way. Just a short distance southeast of the map is the Cerulean Coast Cross of Miquella, with a site of grace nearby. Unlike many of the other crosses that we've found so far, this cross carries a unique message. After interacting with it, we can go to the main gate cross and speak about it with Ansbach. While I don't believe it's necessary to tell Ansbach about the crosses of Miquella with unique messages, it can be missed or skipped, and it does provide important context for the DLC story. Returning to the Cerulean Coast Cross, we will move towards the southernmost point of the coast. Along the way, there is a troll enemy that throws giant pots. It can be defeated to obtain our 5th Hefty cracked pot. Further along, we will reach an enormous fissure. Before going down it, we may as well pick up the St. Trina Disciples Cookbook 2 from the body near the east edge of this area. We can then move to the west side of the fissure and carefully make our way down into it. There is a site of grace at the bottom which we can discover, but the way deeper in is sealed off by Miquella, and so we will have to return here in a later part of the series. There is one last Scadutree fragment that we should get in this area. Starting at the Cerulean Coast site of grace, we can move west along the coastline to reach the Cerulean Coast West site of grace. From there, we will move northeast past the large stone coffin and into a valley region. We can make a stop at the eastmost point of this region to grab the Spirit Sword, then move northwest. There is a small alcove along the northern rock face where the Scadutree fragment is found. Moving northwest from there, we will reach an isolated section of the coast. The boss there, demi-human Queen Mariga, is fairly easy to defeat and drops the star-lined sword. We can also climb up the nearby stone coffin to get a legendary Great Grave Glovewort. If we want the Dancer's armor set and blades, we can get it by returning to the Cerulean Coast West site of grace and heading southeast. Near the singular gnarled tree is a hole that we can drop into to reach an underground cave system. we can go northeast first to get another legendary Great Grave Glovewort. Doubling back, we can then go southwest through the cave to reach a small island. Climbing up to the south, we can get the reusable item Perfumed Oil of Rana, then carefully drop down to the sandy area below. We will then move southeast to the southern Nameless Mausoleum. Defeating the Dancer of Rana boss inside will get us the Dancing Blade of Rana and the Dancer's armor set. Our next destination is Charo's Hidden Grave, where we can get another Scadutree fragment, Hefty Cracked Pot, and our first transformation item. To reach it, we will head southeast from the Castle Front Site of Grace, along the main road. If we haven't already, we can pick up the Swift Spear along our way to the Pillar Path Waypoint Site of Grace. A screaming NPC by the name of Igon will be on the ground nearby. We can speak with him to start his quest, but we do not want to attack him. If we want, we can make a quick detour to the Suppressing Pillar. It is south of the Waypoint Site of Grace. An ancient dragon smithing stone can be found atop it, along with a monument bearing an inscription. It's also a place with a great view. In any case, we will next move southwest from the Pillar Path waypoint, past Igon, and along a path lined by dragon statues. Our progress will be halted by an invasion from the Ancient Dragon Man, and he does not drop anything when defeated. But after he is dealt with, we can continue down the path to reach the entrance of the Dragon's Pit. For this dungeon, all we need to do is follow the path lit by braziers and candles. If we go up to the north in the large ramped chamber, we will find a magma worm which drops an ancient dragon smithing stone when defeated. For our purposes, we will head down to the south. This will lead to another chamber with an altar and a large pit, which we can jump down into. Doing so will take us to a boss chamber where we will need to face off with the ancient dragon man once more. Upon his defeat, we will be rewarded with the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana, which is really good for fighting dragons. We will then need to continue moving south through the large heavy doors to reach the foot of the jagged peak, a somewhat hidden area where we may continue our journey. Up on the ledge to the southeast is a message from Igon that we should read. Afterwards, we can go down into the nearby pit and defeat the jagged peak drake, before moving south through a valley to the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion. Just ahead of the altar, we can grab Igon's Cookbook 1 from inside a crumbling stone tower. Right next to the altar site of grace is the Dragon Communion Priestess NPC. She shares a quest line with Igon, and her story has two possible outcomes. That quest involves a very difficult boss fight, so we will come back to it in part 2, after collecting the majority of Shadow Realm blessings in Scadu Altus and beyond. For now though, we can still speak with her and devour Draconic Essence to get an Ancient Dragon's Blessing, which is akin to the Baldekin's Blessing. We can also ask the priestess about Baal. One last thing, if it's nighttime and you find her sleeping, do not give her Thiollier's Concoction, as it will lock you into one of her two endings. Putting that quest line on the back burner for now, we will next make our way to Chara's hidden grave, moving southwest from the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion down into a valley full of glowing red flowers. We will then make our way west past a Tibia Mariner to reach the site of grace. From there, we will continue west past an area full of gravebirds and an area with Miranda flowers beyond that. We should eventually reach a small pond inhabited by an undead hippo enemy, which can be defeated to get us another Scadutree fragment. Next up, we are going to move west and jump a gap before turning east to go down the river. Near the bottom, we will then turn northwest and make our way to the Lamenter's Jail. We can get another hefty cracked pot here, as well as our first transformation item, along with a secret torch. We will start by traveling down the main path, jumping through a hole along the eastern rock wall. Down this path, we can enter the second cell on our right to find the jail upper level key in a chest. Before doubling back, let's go across the chasm to the east to grab the Lamentation Prattling Pate. To continue through the dungeon, we will then need to retrace our steps back to that first hole in the tunnel wall that we jumped through. We can then turn south and unlock the jail door with the upper level key. After sliding down the ladder, we can enter the first cell to the east to pick up the chilling perfume bottle. Watch out for the Screaming Jar Innard enemies as they can do a good chunk of damage. Moving back out of the cell, we will head north and then up to the east. Going into this new area, the ground will crumble beneath our feet, dropping us down to the pit below. We will want to go up the stairs to the north and down the second path to a room full of jars. Here, we can find a hefty cracked pot atop a mound of bones, and the jail lower level key in a chest just south of there. With those items in hand, we will climb our way out of the pit and go back to the main staircase we came from. Once there, we will go down the stairs and enter the first path which we initially passed up. There is an illusory wall here that we can attack or roll into to remove. The door on the other side can be opened with the lower level key, allowing us to get at the hidden Lamenting Visage torch on the other side. We can then move west to drop back down into the pit we first fell into, before making our way north, up to the top of the stairs. This final path will bring us back to a chamber with another jail door that can be unlocked with the lower level key. Sliding down the ladder beyond it will bring us to the boss chamber. This boss is not too difficult, but it also is not a pushover. A good spirit summon should make it manageable though. The only tricky part is that the boss will turn invisible about halfway through. When it reappears, it will summon a bunch of illusory duplicates that shoot damaging projectiles. We will need to find the real Lamenter through trial and error to defeat it. The boss drops the Lamenter's Mask when defeated. This is a reusable item that can only be used while not wearing any armor. It transforms the user into a Lamenter upon first use, and using it while transform results in an enlarged headbutt attack. It is important to know that the only way to return to human form is by dying. And with that, we are finally ready to tackle the Belurat Tower settlement northwest of the main gate cross. If we want to complete a minor initial step in Hornsent's questline, it is necessary to clear this legacy dungeon before going to the Scadu Altus region. Also, for any arachnophobes, consider this as your warning, as there will be spider scorpions ahead. Passing through the double doors, a spider scorpion will drop down from the ceiling at the top of the stairs. Moving around it, we will make our way further west to a statue where 2 revered spirit ashes can be picked up, all while watching out for the creepy crawlers. We will then circle back and go up one of the curved staircases. There is another spider scorpion waiting in ambush on the right side of the next staircase, so stick to the left or use the Assassin's Gambit Ash of War or similar ability to help avoid being detected. I believe the Lamenter's Visage Torch, which we just got, has a skill that behaves similarly to Assassin's Gambit. Fortunately, those are the only mandatory spider scorpions to get by in this dungeon, and the Belurat Tower Settlement Site of Grace is at the top of a few more stairs. After discovering the Site of Grace, we can move southeast into the settlement. Shortly after passing under a bridge, we can turn northeast and enter the small private altar, where another Site of Grace is found. I'm going to use Assassin's Gambit again here to avoid detection by the Horned Warrior ahead, as those enemies are a real pain to deal with. In any case, we will move north out of the private altar, past the Horned Warrior, and east into the courtyard. Near the central tree is the Shriek of Sorrow Ash of War, and we should also trigger an invasion from Fire Knight Queline. When defeated, he drops the Crusade Insignia Talisman. Moving back west, we can then jump up the crumbled rooftops and move northwest through a narrow alley to a waterway. A short distance downstream is an entrance to a small building with a ladder we can climb up. Up top is the storeroom key, which we will have a use for soon. For now, we can exit the building and turn south. Running along the edge of the rooftop, we can jump to a walkway that leads to a small secluded room with the Well Depths key. We will then want to double back almost to where we got the storeroom key, but move up the stairs to the north this time. Veering west, we can then go down the stairs to the south to reach a lift. This lift will lower down to a chamber, and we can pull a lever there to open a shortcut back to the Belurat Tower Settlement Site of Grace. Now let's cover where to use those two keys that we got. For the Well Depths key, we will move east from the Site of Grace we just got back to, past the fountain and up the stairs. We can then head west to find a very deep well. Sliding down the ladder, we will find a door that the Well Depths key opens to the northwest. Feel free to explore this poison-filled area on your own, but it doesn't contain any super important items, although there are a few unique pieces of gear. Also, if you see a legendary item through a window, don't waste your time trying to reach it, as it is only accessible near the end of the DLC. For the storeroom key, we will start from the small private altar Site of Grace and exit it to the southwest. The door that it opens can be found past the two shade enemies. An NPC named Hornsent Grand Dame resides in the storeroom. We can speak with her until exhausting all of her dialogue, but she won't do much aside from insult us until we obtain another item. For now, we can return to the Belurat Tower Settlement Site of Grace and take the shortcut we recently opened up. Here's another warning for arachnophobes. The first chamber I will be entering to the west contains the unique bone bow, but you don't need to go get it if you would just rather avoid more spider scorpions. Running back out of that chamber, we will climb over the rubble to the east and watch out for the manfly waiting in ambush as we enter a hidden room. Be sure to interact with the Cross of Mikola here as it carries a unique message, then pick up the Scadutree fragment and exit to the south. The dried bouquet talisman can be picked up at the nearby altar, and we can then jump down into the nearby pit and move east into a chamber with a fountain. I'm using Assassin's Gambit here before climbing the ladder, as there is another Horned Warrior ahead that I would like to get the drop on. After climbing the ladder, we will run out to the west, deal with the Horned Warrior if needed, then defeat the glimmering Potbearer to the south and pick up the Revered Spirit Ash it drops. As we then go back across the bridge and move further west, there is another Revered Spirit Ash that we can grab before going up the spiral staircase to reach the stage front Site of Grace. The final boss of this legacy dungeon is just ahead, and it is fairly challenging. We have done all we can do to upgrade our Shadow Realm blessings without going to Scadu Altus though, and we should have our Scadutree blessing at level 6, and Revered Spirit Ash blessing at level 5. If we want, we can interact with the gold sign to summon Redmane Freyja as an ally for the fight. You can also pause here until after defeating the boss to avoid spoilers. I don't have too much advice for this boss, as the Blasphemous Blade skill is a pretty good way to deal damage while also staying at a safe distance. Upon our victory, we will get the Remembrance of the Dancing Lion, which can be redeemed at Finger Reader Enya in Roundtable Hold for either the Enraged Divine Beast Talisman or the Divine Beast Froststomp Ash of War. The boss will also drop the legendary Divine Beast Head Armor, which we will need for a quest step. Before that though, we can discover the new Site of Grace, then take the lift to our southeast. Beyond the double doors is a Revered Spirit Ash, and we can also make our way up the large set of stairs to find the Tower of Shadow message left by Needle Knight Letta. Next up, we will fast travel to the small private altar and return to the Hornsent Grand Dam. At this point, she will be in a seeming state of despair. However, if we equip the Divine Beast head and speak to her, she will have some new things to say. After we exhaust all of her dialogue and get the Watchful Spirit incantation as a reward, we can go rest at the nearby Site of Grace and return to her for a bowl of scorpion stew. She will only give us one bowl at a time, and only if we do not have one in our inventory. In any case, we will want to bring this stew to the other Hornsent NPC. We can give it to him, then speak through all of his dialogue to get a few furnace visages. If we go get another scorpion stew from the Grand Dam and try to give it to Hornsent again, he will refuse it. It doesn't seem like completing this step has any effect on Hornsent's quest, but it is a nice gesture nonetheless. We can also speak with Freyja and ask about the damage to her helm, and then ask about that other man, referring to the Hornsent, to get a little more info on him. Also, because we interacted with one of Miquella's unique crosses in the settlement, we can go tell Ansbach about it. Our next objective is to go through Castle Ensis, another legacy dungeon, at least until we reach Miquella's cross therein. We will start by heading northeast from the castle front Site of Grace, across the bridge. Feel free to explore on your own, as there are some notable items within and around the castle, and they can be obtained at any time. Across the bridge, we can angle further north and head up that path to eventually reach the cross and a nearby Site of Grace. There is also the Castle Cross message left behind by Letta. That is the only Shadow Realm blessing item in this legacy dungeon, but we will cover how to reach the final boss so that her remembrance may be obtained. To get around the gate that's barring our path, we can move southwest and drop into the pit beyond the soldier. Exiting the cave, we will move northeast and hop across some stones protruding from a waterfall. We can then climb the ladder to the northwest and emerge on the other side of the gate. We can also open the gate by pushing the lever in the room across from that of the ladder. Afterwards, we will move southeast, continuing through the castle. Moonrathil, Carrion Knight, is guarding the entrance to a chapel, and we can defeat him to get his sword. On the altar ahead is the Rellana's cameo talisman, which we can grab before moving west further through the building. After exiting through the southeast, we will open a pair of iron gates and run atop the ramparts to reach the Castle Lord's Chamber Site of Grace. There is a gold sign outside the boss room that can be used to summon Needle Knight Letta. Also know that this boss can be taken on at any point in the DLC, and it is not a required boss for any quest or to beat the DLC in general. With that, you can pause here if you want to avoid spoilers on this boss fight. The boss, Rellana, Twin Moon Knight, has an awesome pair of swords, which we can exchange her remembrance for. Assuming we beat her quickly, this is also the shorter path to reach Scadu Altus, although not the only one. I think you need to jump several times to evade her Twin Moon attack, but I can't confirm this as she did not use it on me before being defeated. Upon her defeat, we will get the remembrance of the Twin Moon Knight, which can be redeemed for either Rellana's Twin Blades or Rellana's Twin Moons spell. Exiting to the north, we will enter Scadu Altus, causing Hornsent to move there from his initial location. I'm going to say this now, and once more later on, as it is important. We do not want to approach the Shadow Keep by moving north of the Scadu Altus map location. And we also don't want to move northeast of the bridge leading to the village site of Grace. Doing either of these will lock us out of getting a unique item, and we will cover that before the end of this video. But first, let's cover the Castle Ensis skip, an alternate route to reach Scadu Altus. Even if you've already reached Scadu Altus through Castle Ensis, we will be getting some unique items as we go. Starting from the castle front site of Grace, we will need to head southeast, down through the valley and to the area of Miranda flowers and pools of poison. You should see a wooden shack visible in the distance, and we will move in that general direction. We can grab the Greater Potentate's Cookbook 7 along the way. Beyond the pools of poison, there is a sealed spirit spring. It can be activated by destroying the pile of rocks just a short distance east of it. Before doing that, we can pick up the Talisman of the Dread from inside the wooden shack. After unsealing the Spirit Spring, we can then take it up to a secluded ridge, and a second Spirit Spring there all the way up to the site of Grace behind the Fort of Reprimand, in Scadu Altus. After discovering the Grace, we can jump over the fort wall to the northeast to reach the ground below with only minimal damage taken. We will then move around the fort towards the northwest side of it. We also may as well discover the Morth Highway South site of Grace before continuing on. If we haven't already done so, we should go grab the map for this region. To reach it, we can follow the Morth Highway northwest. The unique repeating crossbow can be found underneath the Ghost Flame Dragon's initial position, along the highway, and we may as well discover the Morth Ruins site of Grace along the way to the map. It should be on the east side of the road, near one of Miquella's crosses. The highway will eventually merge with another road, and the map can be found at that intersection. As mentioned earlier, we do not want to approach the Shadow Keep by moving north of the Scadu Altus map location, and we do not want to move northeast of the bridge leading to the village site of Grace. Doing either of those will lock us out of getting a unique item. Before moving on, we can move south and discover the High Road Cross site of Grace if we haven't already done so. We will be covering these next couple of steps along with everything else to do in Scadu Altus in part 2 of the guide series. However, let's do two things before leaving off, as it is still super easy to get locked out of them by approaching the Shadow Keep. First, we will want to check that we have a Warming Stone available, and these can be found throughout the base game. For example, there are a few of them located west of Erith Church in Liurnia. We will then move northwest from the High Road Cross site of Grace to the north side of the Church of the Crusade. A friendly pest NPC will be curled up near the cliff edge there. If we drop a Warming Stone near it, it will get up and begin foraging. We can then rest at a site of Grace or otherwise reload the game and interact with a pest to get the Forager Brood Cookbook 4. While it is possible to miss this cookbook, it's actually the Forager Brood Cookbook 7 that we can get so easily locked out of. Before we go get it though, let's knock out two birds with one stone. Fast traveling to the Morth Highway South site of Grace, we can move north through the tunnel, then go east along the rock wall. There is another sealed spirit spring here, and a pile of rocks further east that will need to be destroyed to unseal it. We can then use the spirit spring to reach the elevated area and run down the path to the southeast ledge. We will find Miquella's Shadow View cross there, which bears a unique message. After grabbing the Scadutree fragment and interacting with the cross, we will fast travel to the main gate cross and speak with Ansbach. After telling him about all the unique crosses and speaking to him once more, Ansbach should make a revelation. I do not believe it is critical to complete this step, but it does offer some nice context to the story. However, what is critical is that we interact with more and choose the Talk to More option. Because we warmed the pest and got the Forager Brewed Cookbook 4, More will then give us the Forager Brewed Cookbook 7. It is not possible to get this cookbook after approaching the Shadow Keep, so it is good to take care of it now. As mentioned before, we will be covering much of the Scadu Altus, as well as all other areas that do not require approaching the Shadow Keep in part 2 of this guide series. In the meantime, I recommend avoiding the Shadow Keep and the Jagged Peak, which is east of the Dragon's Pit terminus. Other than that, feel free to go explore any of the other unchecked areas south of Scadu Altus. The Ghost Flame Dragons each drop a somber ancient dragon smithing stone, so it might be a good idea to take them on. If you're still having trouble with the steps covered in this video, you can reach out to me in the comments section where I will do my best to help. I also recommend checking the comment I have pinned, as I'll be updating it with information about specific problems people are having and potential solutions. You can find part 2 of this series over on my channel, and if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat, her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day if you're here today, have a great Saturday, and a great weekend, and as always, thanks for watching.